Hello, everyone. Welcome to my live Q&A, not weekly because I recently did one. This is episode number 12. My name is Danny Segura, and yes, this is my weekly live Q&A where you submit questions and I answer them. So lots to talk about here. I was originally going to do this a UFC Brasilia recap. I've been doing those videos as well, but because there's so much to talk about outside of UFC Brasilia, I figured I'd just open it up to it being a live Q&A. So again, I'll be taking questions about anything. Most of the questions that have been submitted so far via Twitter have been surrounding UFC Brasilia, but obviously about the coronavirus, the recent outbreak, and as well as the impact that's had, or the little impact that's had on the UFC schedule / MMA schedule. So a lot to talk about here. I just want to, as a disclaimer, just throw this out there because I did a video on Thursday at 1 p.m. And from that video, and then a few hours later, things just changed dramatically as far as what was going on, with the coronavirus, with the UFC, etc. So things could very well change within the next few hours. I mean, this is something that's been rapidly developing. So I just want to throw a disclaimer out there. As of now, as of 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, this video is relevant. I cannot speak beyond that. So I would assume this will hold for a day or so, but we'll see how rapid the news goes. But again, a lot of moving pieces right now. So if you're not familiar with these, I've asked you to submit questions on Twitter. I will address those first. Then once those are done, I will take things over to the live chat, which I already see people popping in and dropping some comments, and then I'll answer questions there. So if you didn't have time to submit questions via Twitter, don't worry. You can do that in the live chat in the later part of this video. Usually I go about halfway. I run about an hour, so I do half an hour Twitter questions, about half an hour live chat stuff. So yeah, let's get started. I hope you're doing well in this Sunday, March 15th. And I figured, there's a lot to talk about, but the biggest thing is obviously the coronavirus, and rightfully so. The first question was asked about that, so let's get right into it. PR12 dash TD Defense, Christopher Kitt. I know Christopher. UFC holding events with no fans. What's the big deal? Right. So I guess there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the UFC's decision to continue their schedule and maybe not continue because they've had to alter it due to some laws that some countries have passed. But nonetheless, the intention to continue to put on fights regardless of what's going on here with the coronavirus. Obviously, they plan on having most of the fights. I think they already plan on moving forward with the fights just with no fans. We saw that happen at UFC Brasilia, and yet, like myself, there's many people that believe, that sort of shouldn't be going on, right? That's sort of not the right thing to do here. But let me explain to you kind of what's going on. So I know there was some criticism towards the UFC about holding this event in Brasilia. Personally, I don't really feel like that was such a big deal because it was so early in what's going on. I feel like things have escalated as the hours go by, and also that event was already like right there, But again, you can look at Bellator and say that event was even closer because that event, Bellator 241, was supposed to go down on Friday, and that was canceled completely, and all fighters and all staff were paid for 100%. So yeah, there's definitely a case to be said there, but regardless, the UFC did take some precautions, or they were forced to, right? Having no fans at the event, having media at a separate hotel room, separate from the location in a hotel to take care of, all their media obligations there. So they did take some precautions. However, moving forward, I do think that's when it gets kind of tricky, and obviously there's an option for the UFC to hold events with no fans, and that's certainly helpful as far as containing the outbreak of coronavirus, but there's still issues involved. Number one, travel issues. Fighters will have to travel. Fighters will have to get on airplanes, will have to go to airports where this thing is. There's usually crowds around those places, regardless of the day. Nowadays, I mean, we've seen pictures of, the airports in Europe and other parts where people are just desperately trying to get back home because governments are issuing travel bans. So, you have a certain amount of time to get to your destination before, that's closed out. So there's going to be crowds at airports. So that in itself, it's an issue. Again, I'm not really worried about the safety and health of fighters. I think, that's fairly a young group of individuals, a healthy group of individuals. And we've seen from what the experts have told us that usually those people are not at risk of the coronavirus. Usually it's older people that have health complications that where, it can weaken their immune system and things can get worse from there. But that's the issue. The issue is that it's highly contagious. We know very little of it still. It can spread fairly quick, even airborne. You don't necessarily need exchange of fluid or touching someone. Just being around the same air that other people that are contagious are breathing. So that within itself is an issue. And the issue here is that fighters, again, have to get on airports, have to get in planes, have to travel, have to train, have to be at gyms training with other people. And it would just potentially further the spread of the virus. And maybe impact someone that isn't young, that isn't in great shape, and have complications there. That's the big deal. I think it's a big. If we just look at other sports, all contact sports are canceling everything, and and that should say something, right? And at this point, UFC London was going to go down next week. That's not happening because the UK is not letting these type of events go down. And, you see someone like Leon Edwards with a travel ban no longer being able to go into the US to fight Tyron Woodley because now they're switching the event. And it seems the UFC is trying to put on a card as we speak right now, and they don't even have a venue yet. So to be honest, I see it not so likely that that's going to happen, but who knows? The UFC has pulled off crazier stunts, but I just don't think this is a time to be having sports. It's not really, again, for the safety of the fighters and of the people, but of everyone around us. You don't know who you can impact indirectly and what that can lead to. So, tricky stuff there. But in my opinion, this thing's happening so fast and we know very little about it, especially how it's going to impact the US because there's no tests being done or very little tests. We assume that the numbers of cases are much higher than what's being reported due to the lack of testing. So I don't even think the UFC has the ability to test anyways. So in my opinion, I think everything should be suspended for the time being, see how this develops in the next week or two, and then make some decisions based on that. Again, I'm not totally opposed to having events without fans. I think that's definitely an option in the future, but this is so new and we still don't have the right information that I think everyone should just stay put and see what happens. We have government officials now kind of, just a few days ago, they weren't taking the matter very seriously, but it seems it's escalated and they're much more worried about the virus now than a few days ago. So it's bizarre and kind of wild that the UFC is trying to put on fights as we speak. They don't have a venue for it yet. They don't have a main event for the London fight yet, and yet they're still pushing forward to this. And a mass email went around asking for fighters, even not non-UFC fighters, just asking for anyone who's down to fight and fill up this card. So that's pretty wild. If you're asking me if I'm for it, I'm for holding events with no fans 100%, but just not now. Wait it out, see how big this thing's gonna get in the next 3 weeks or so, see how we're containing with it. And if everything seems to be okay, then maybe you can hold events with precautions. But as of now, given what information we're getting from the government officials, I think the best course of action is to stay put. But it seems the UFC is not going with that type of decision. So we'll see how everything evolves. Honestly, I have a hard time seeing that UFC London, whatever it's now. I see it. I have a hard time seeing happening. By the way, for those who are saying, shut the blinds, it's too bright. It's actually not that bright. I don't know why my camera. Let me do this real quick. Will that help? Okay, helped a little. Yeah, I don't know why it's so bright. The exposure seems to be kind of kind of see it's kind of fixes as I get closer or farther from the camera. All right, hopefully that fixed it a little bit. But yeah, it's weird. Let me see. How about there? All right, hopefully that's a little better. Anyways, as long as you guys can hear me fine, that that should be. Who cares how I look, right? But as long as you guys can hear me properly, that should be what matters. All right, next question by Jesus Magdaleno. What's next for Kevin Lee after his loss? Actually, let me hold on the UFC Brasilia stuff. Let me get the coronavirus stuff out of the way. By the way, I spoke to a couple of UFC fighters that fought at Brasilia, and they told me there was no testing for coronavirus. They were just told to look out for symptoms. So I mean, think about this: if they're going to hold events in the future, are they going to do testing? Like, and if they say, "Oh, well, just look out for symptoms," it's proven that I mean, the information is out there that it can take up to 14 days for symptoms to arise. So it's that you don't know if someone's fighting with coronavirus and getting somebody else infected. You have no idea. It'd be different if, say, they waited out a couple weeks, they found out a way to somehow get testing, and all of a sudden they're saying, okay, yeah, we're holding fights and every fighter is getting tested for coronavirus. Then precautions are a little different. But to just go, okay, we're just gonna still hold fights like nothing else, and like nothing's happening, and if they tell us not to have fans, we won't have fans, but everything continues as normal. That to me is kind of crazy. Let's see. I'm just going to scroll down real quick to see what coronavirus's questions are out there. I don't see Tyron Woodley taking a short notice fight under these circumstances. Would you agree? Caleb asks on Twitter. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Tyron Woodley is right now asking for opponents. Seems Colby Covington threw his name in the hat, and I don't know who else has offered to fight, but it's going to be rough. I mean, he's asking to fight someone on a week's notice, a little bit less than a week, on a location that's yet to be determined. Yeah, come fight me. I don't know where, and I don't know if 100% is going to go down, but come fight me anyways in a week. That to me sounds kind of ridiculous, kind of crazy. We'll see if that actually happens. But as I said, Caleb, I don't think UFC London goes down. I don't see Tyron Woodley getting an opponent in short notice, and it seems a lot of fights have fallen through. By the way, if you go to MMAJunkie.com, there's a great article that we've put together. Maybe I shouldn't say we. Mike Bong put together, I believe. Let me see. Kind of on the state of everything. So it gives you an update per card as far as what's going to go down. I'll quickly run through it just to keep you guys updated as far as the latest. Let's see. All right. So UFC London's being relocated due to travel restrictions. They don't have as of this moment, they don't have a venue or a location really. I believe Ariel tweeted something like Alabama was being discussed and some places in California, but that's still very much up in the air. As of UFC 249, that is Khabib versus Ferguson in Brooklyn. They're going to have to move to a different location. Again, here in New York, that's not going to go down. And, they can't move it to Nevada because Nevada seems to, have a ban as well for at least for a little bit. And they're going to then review everything and see where they stand in a few weeks. But that's not going to happen, at least in Brooklyn. So yeah, the March 28th and April 11th fight cards are not going to happen at the Apex in Las Vegas as the UFC thought they would. And they're looking for I guess for a location. It's crazy. All right, back to the questions. Caleb, with so many changes happening daily, do you think the UFC can keep pulling this off? Again, it seems countries are more and more taking, and government bodies in general are taking a more reserved approach to this. So it's going to become increasingly harder for the UFC to pull these kinds of things off, moving events on short notice, putting on fights on short notice, finding venues on short notice. It seems it's going to grow less and less likely. I mean, just as of this morning, the president of Colombia tweeted out that Colombia is going on complete shutdown. They're going to close borders as of starting Monday, starting tomorrow. So only Colombian citizens and residents will be allowed in the country. And even if they're allowed in the country, they will have to go through a 14-day period of testing and quarantine to, I guess, be reintroduced back to the population, I guess, just to for precautionary reasons. So that's how serious it's getting. El Salvador did that days ago. Did that on like Thursday or Wednesday. So yeah, this thing's definitely people are getting concerned, and I know somebody tweeted at me, well, I mean, it's only 1% of fatality or something like that. That's still a good amount, and we should do, again, we shouldn't be freaking out. Like, I'm gonna be fine. If you're watching this, my demographic, I think it's from 25 to 34, like people my age. So we're all going to be fine. You just get sick for a little bit. Worst comes to worst, you self-quarantine for 14 days and symptoms go away and you'll be fine. We're going to be all right. This is nothing to freak out for. But you don't know if it's going to impact someone, right? If you have an interaction with someone that knows somebody elderly or etc. So that's kind of where I stand on it. Like, I'm not worried about my well-being, but I'm worried about what I'm doing to sort of protect others. So, and I think everyone should sort of have that sense of community and responsibility. But yes, to answer your question, Caleb, it's going to go increasingly harder as time goes for the UFC to pull these kinds of things off and have events. Move events on short notice. It's just going to be tough. It's just going to be a tough thing to do. Michael Terrell, would you rather live in the era where pay-per-views have to be headlined by title fights, or live in the era where fighters on losing streaks get title shots? I'd rather live in the era where pay-per-views have to be headlined by title shots. Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're taking a shot here at Joel Romero, but like I said on previous videos, that was under special circumstances. The person that was supposed to take on Israel Adesanya was not Joel Romero, was Paulo Costa. But injuries happen, and other fighters weren't ready. I mean, we saw Jared Cannonier have a pectoral tear as well, so he wouldn't have been ready even if he would have taken the fight. So yeah, I mean, it came under special circumstances, and there was enough little asterisks on Joel Romero's record to, believe that he's one of the top guys, and I still think he's one of the top guys. I mean, a lot of the fights he lost, I thought he won. So again, I believe that's a little bit unfair, but I'd rather be in an era where pay-per-views are headlined by title fights, and I'm not entirely against that. I think that should be the norm. Occasionally, when there's a big fight like Masvidal versus Diaz, Conor versus whoever, you can override that. But occasionally, I like the fact that the UFC tries to, keep every single pay-per-view, have it in every single pay-per-view a title fight, because that gives it importance. Title fights are always important. No matter what weight class, what gender, title fights are always going to be important, and the very top of the fights. A path to wokeness. You said last week Dustin has not ducked Hooker yet. He has. Hooker called him out before he got booked versus Felder. Dustin said no. Then Hooker had been on numerous podcasts recently saying he was not sent a contract for Dustin. It's just rumors. So yeah, again, we'll see. Everything's very new. From my understanding, it was in the works, and that's what we reported at MMA Junkie. So I can't say anything beyond that. I mean, anything beyond that, I can only speculate on facts and stuff like that, and give you opinions on facts. So from my understanding, Dustin's down to fight Hooker, and that fight is being in the works. Now with this whole coronavirus thing, we'll see again how everything will be affected in the coming weeks. I know the Goes and Gorgeous George over at MMA Junkie Radio recently talked to Dan Hooker for like a good while. It might have been like 35 minutes. I have that interview on my Watch Later playlist. That's definitely something I'm looking forward to watch. So I encourage you. Maybe he dropped something there. I don't know, but I encourage you to check that out. Should be a good interview. But yeah, I can't speak much on that. Matchup top 15 of 155, Lee versus Cowboy. Yeah, that's not bad. Hooker versus Charles, that's a good fight. Dustin versus Pettis, good fight. Conor versus Justin, Al versus Felder. All fine fights. I would switch some names around. Again, as you guys know, I like that Conor Diaz fight. Justin should get next shot, but I mean, who knows if that lightweight title fight is even going down in Brooklyn. It's not going down in Brooklyn, but we don't know if it's going to go down, period. Hooker versus Charles, I feel like the Lee versus Charles Oliveira fight was kind of like two prospects fighting, so I kind of don't want to see that again. Hooker versus Charles, I think if anything, both guys need kind of like a veteran name at this point, like stop fighting each other in the sense of like fighting prospects. Of course, they haven't fought, but yeah, I'd kind of like to see. I mean, it's a fine fight, don't get me wrong, but if anything, I'd do Hooker. You suggested here Hooker versus Oliveira, and then Dustin versus Pettis. I would go Hooker versus Dustin and Charles Oliveira versus Anthony Pettis. That'd be a rematch because they fought at 145 and Pettis beat him. But or a variation of that. But at some point, a prospect has to fight a veteran or an up and comer. They're not prospects anymore; they're contenders. All right, I think that does it for Twitter questions. Oh no, okay, so we got one more again. Jesus Magdaleno asked, which I skipped it, but now going back to it, what's next for Kevin Lee after this loss? He has all the tools to be great, but seems to be somewhat of a head case sometimes. And then HCK replied at the bottom, I would like to know what are these tools and how effective are they against any top five? So yeah, great questions. Interesting sort of case study there with Kevin Lee. I mean, a lot of people have been, by the way, cafecito, as usual, Red Rocket Station mug for those Fallout fans out there. But anyways, yeah, it was a very tough loss for Kevin Lee because it kind of killed his momentum from the Gregor Gillespie fight, which there was so much momentum after that fight. I mean, that knockout, the losing streak, the layoff, right? The switching camps, it just felt like, okay, this is a new version of Kevin Lee, and we're in for a wild ride. He's going to be knocking out fools left and right, and we already know his jiu-jitsu is amazing. So that was that. But then obviously he fought Charles Oliveira, and Charles Oliveira just put it on him. Couldn't deal, in the striking, in the grappling. I mean, Kevin Lee was kind of holding his own, but it looked the entire fight that he was just kind of on a downfall. Like he started here and things just kept getting worse. There was no up and down, right? Like saying that Zhang Weili versus Yun Jacek fight, Weili looked good early, then Yun Jacek looked good. So it was like both were kind of, momentums were shifting, whereas this fight, I felt like it was just constantly decreasing for Kevin Lee, which is not good. But probably a lot has to do with his cardio as well. I think he does have some cardio issues. I don't necessarily think it's that he doesn't train hard. I find it hard to believe given his physique. I mean, some people are just born naturally stronger than others. Some people are just born naturally faster than others. And I think that also applies to cardio as well. Some people are just built, I don't know, whether it's their lung capacity or something in their body that can just be better at, provide better results as far as cardio is concerned. Like you can run the same 5 miles every day as somebody else, but I do believe that genetics plays a part, and someone will have a better cardio despite both having the same training regimen. I do believe in that. So I think that could be the case. Maybe he clearly looks very big. I mean, if you look at the size of his back, it's just huge, and he's very muscular. Maybe there's something to be said about having that much muscle in MMA, specifically for 155, maybe a heavyweight that can have some effects, but at the same time give you so many advantages. But a lightweight, given the fact that it's fairly high paced, right? Pretty high paced. There's a lot of action. You would assume maybe trim down on muscle and see how you feel. Then it would make your weight cut easier, and also who knows, maybe it'll boost your cardio. So that's definitely an issue there. But he does have the tools to answer HCK's question. He does have tools. I mean, he's developing good striking. He's got very good jiu-jitsu. His wrestling could do some work, but it's still good and effective. He's a tough dude. Ground and pound is good as well. I mean, he defended Charles Oliveira's submission attacks several times. There was one transition that I loved where he got caught in a kind of armbar. He defended that. Oliveira switched to a normal plata. He defended that. Then he switched to a triangle, which is a common way to switch in those type of submissions. And, he got out of that. Like, Kevin Lee is definitely a very skilled fighter. He just has certain holes that cost him these fights. And, he said we probably won't see him for a while. I think maybe he was just being a little bit emotional and not dramatic. But, I mean, obviously, like, you lose a fight like that, it was a big stage. You're bound to feel a certain way. But I do have a feeling we'll see him back. Maybe not soon, but certainly in 2020. I believe he said you might not see me for a few years, but I don't believe that to be true. I would just say I don't think he's ready for the top 5. Just outside of it, like top 7 competition. I just don't, from what I see, I just don't think he's ready. That doesn't mean he won't be ready, but, he's just 27. I mean, you probably enter your prime around 30, right? So he still has several years to get there. So I guess I would like to see him just, go back to training, sharpen his skills, and take somebody down the ladder, and then just keep sort of building experience, taking not lower level fights, but, not high level fights either. And then see where you're at a year from now, 2-3 fights in, see where you're at. Yeah, I think that's what's next for Kevin Lee. But definitely there's no need to rush back for a fight. He's still very young, has plenty of time ahead of him. And for a 27-year-old fighter, he's still very good. I mean, a lot of people his age are not in the position that he's in. So, I mean, Charles Oliveira is 30 years old, and just a few years ago, we were just talking about how, not that he was a waste of talent, but he didn't fight, or he wasn't at his optimal self. And just in recent times, he's really put everything together, and he's 30. So give Kevin Lee some time. He's very good, but he's clearly not there yet. So give him some time. I'm sure he's going to sharpen his skills at TriStar, and then eventually get back to the top. But as of now, I would say take some time off and take a step down in competition. That would be what I would like to see next for Kevin Lee. But he's still very good. Don't count him out. All right, that does it for Twitter, I believe. Let me double check here. Oh no, we got a couple more. All right. Your video, all right. Your video stream is frozen on my end, but can you answer my question anyway? Would having a union in place to keep MMA fighters from trying to fight during this global pandemic? Yeah, of course it would help. A union would address things. Let me turn off my email here. A union would certainly address these kinds of things and represent fighters who, I'm sure there are fighters also who might be concerned in fighting, but they need to make money and they want to step up. So in times of crisis, often opportunity arises. And, I know I just see it on Twitter. A lot of fighters are saying, I'll fight, give me, I'll fight, I'll cut a little bit less weight. Let me fight a weight class above, and I'll take a fight on short notice and all this. I mean, it's a good way to make money, right? Short notice fight, like quick way to make money, I would say. But yeah, so I mean, I don't blame them. This is a selfish sport. This is not a team sport, so it's hard to have a union, and it's hard to have fighters come together specifically for this reason. Because again, Leon Edwards can't fight. His country has a travel ban. Can't get into the U.S. Well, that's an opportunity for someone to step up and fight someone with a name like Tyron Woodley. So it's going to be tough having a union as far as the climate of the sport just doesn't lend itself for a union. But yeah, it would definitely help. Yeah, but yeah, it's crazy. And I don't blame fighters. I mean, they need to make money. They need to make money, and that's their way of making money. So they're looking to fight. And also, like, you don't know if the UFC says they're for sure having these next 2 cards. We don't know how bad this is gonna get. Experts are saying it's gonna get a lot worse. That it's just starting. So maybe the UFC will suspend fights in the future. Although they said it's going to take a complete government shutdown. But recently I saw Dr. What's his name? Dr. Fauci, who's like he's basically an expert for diseases, infectious diseases for the government. He's actually suggesting, or he's open to a 14-day national shutdown. Um, so yeah, I mean, a lot of these fighters might be seeing this opportunity where that the UFC is going to hold an event next week as one, a way to get in the UFC, another as a way to make some money, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next few months. Like I totally get it, but at this point, like I think the nation's health and well-being is far more important than money. And yes, people are going to hurt financially. I mean, I have a lot of friends that work in bars and restaurants, and this was their last weekend working, as bartenders, because bars are closing. That's just the way it is. I mean, it's a global pandemic. Don't expect everyone to it's not business as usual. Like, things will change, life as we know it, in order to take certain precautions and avoid the worst. We have to, people are going to hurt, especially people that work in tourism and in the service industry. I have friends that work in music and they've had to cancel concerts. That's going to hurt their pocket. I would say this though, and I think Jimmy Smith brought a great point on Twitter. He said something like, yes, like, stay home, get healthy, all that. But remember, gyms and jiu-jitsu gyms, they make money by having people come in. So please pay your dues if you have the means. And that's something I want to address as well. Like, if you have the means to help someone, help someone. Like, for example, I'm so lucky I get to work from home. So my paycheck is not affected because I'm still working for MMA Junkie. That doesn't change. I'm still covering the news right from home. So, I will support my boxing gym and I will pay my monthly fee, even though I'm not going to boxing, because, that's how they make their money. And, and I have the means to do so. So if you have the means to help someone out and someone you respect or something you care about, then do so. If you go to a gym, pay your due if you have the means, because that's how they make their money. So don't be like, oh, it's a free month for me, so I'm not gonna go. So saving some money there, yeah, that's nice. But if you have the means, you should help out. But again, that's personal decisions. But that's just the way I look at things. All right, Maya Bobnar. If Colby steps for Leon Edwards against Woodley, who wins? Keep it up. Love watching these. Thank you, Maya. I appreciate your comment. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I really have a hard time seeing the UFC pull this off and have an event in a location that they've yet to be that's yet to be determined. Pull off some kind of fight. I really have a hard time seeing that. But if they do, I really also have a hard time seeing Colby being the guy, because I just don't see it. Again, like Woodley said online, and this is not throwing shade at Colby. This is literally Colby's persona. He talks a lot. He says a lot of things, and a lot of those things are often not true. So yeah, that's all I can say about that. I don't see Colby fighting Woodley, but if they do end up fighting, as you mentioned, who wins? I would say Woodley. He's been preparing for a fight. He's prepared for a fight. Colby hasn't. And it just seems that to me at this point, especially given the little time there is to make weight and be prepared for a high caliber fight, Woodley seems to be the guy that's more prepared. So I would go with Woodley on this one. But I doubt that fight happens, to be honest. All right. Yeah, so there was more questions. I messed up. Sorry. I'll address these and then move over to the live chat. We still got time. We're only 30 minutes in. So I suspect the last 20 minutes of this will be dedicated to the live chat. The Executioner 91. Is this what makes Dana a successful promoter? His willingness to go against the status quo, or this will hurt him in the end? So 100%, this is what makes Dana a successful promoter. One of the things that makes a successful promoter. I mean, you can look at this as he's being determined. He is, again, has that crazy way to find means and find a way and sort of, yeah, find a way to put things together. I mean, there's certainly a skill level to that, but is this the time to employ that type of skill level, right? Because he's definitely a gifted human being as far as fight promotion goes. I mean, he's extremely successful. But is this the time to do that? I don't think so. Like I said earlier in this video, you guys know how I feel about the UFC continuing events. I don't think it's the right thing to do. Frankly, I think it's a little bit irresponsible, to be honest, because you're opening the door. Because look, again, fighters will fight. That's what fighters will do. So you're basically allowing them to, or promoting that they go to gyms, that they fly out to places. They get on planes, right? They fight amidst a global pandemic, amidst an outbreak that can really hurt the country's economy, which it will, and also kill people. So I think at this point, everyone should stay put. I mean, if you look at, for example, soccer is obviously it's in Europe, and in Europe is much worse than what it is here in the US. I think Europe is probably right now, even more than China at this point. It's sort of the hotbed for Corona right now. And look how soccer is handling it. They've canceled all major leagues. Sports are banned in most countries. If you look at every single soccer player, I mean, they're just either putting videos out there or photos. I mean, Spain is in a complete shutdown. It's a complete shutdown. Yeah, they're putting out videos out there saying, please stay home. Please take all the necessary precautions to, avoid exposure and all this. And they're all healthy individuals. They're all young, healthy individuals. So it's really not a concern for them, but a concern for others, because you don't want things to spread, and also just to create awareness. So, yeah, props to the fighters that are doing that, sort of trying to create awareness and using their platform to tell people, look, stay home and stay safe out there, and be careful and take these things seriously. But it seems, the UFC is going against that, and no matter what, unless there's a complete government shutdown, they're going to have fights. As far as your question, the Executioner 91, this could actually be very good for business, believe it or not. Because the fact is, MMA, the UFC would be the only live contact sport out there, really. And I assume, as I mentioned on my last live chat, that my last live Q&A, that people are most likely going to stay home. So they're most likely going to up their consumption of media and programming. I mean, I have. And I think everyone else will too. So if there's live fights going on, and every other sport is gone, you might tune into that. So there's that. And the last part of your question, will this hurt him in the end? God only knows. Who knows how bad this outbreak is? Maybe it ends up being not that bad and everything's fine. And then, maybe we were overreacting a little bit. But maybe it is as bad or even worse than we thought. And we'll look back on this maybe not so great. The point is, we don't know what's going to happen. So when you don't have all the information and you don't know where things are going, best thing to do is just to wait it out and see where it goes, and then make decisions on that. And I think that's what most people are doing, right? Like, for example, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, they didn't say we're going to cancel all events indefinitely. No, I believe they have a date. The next two, I believe they have a date where they're going to reassess things, but they're going to look at how things play out in the coming weeks. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Back with another question. The fighters are actively trying to fight ways to fight, partly due to the nature of their jobs. The media is primarily saying stop the fights to protect the fighters. That's right. Ariel said all the fighters he talked to before Brazil wanted the event. So where's the line drawn? Again, fighters will fight, and I'm sure this applies not only to fighters, but, for example, people that work in the service industry. Like, as I mentioned, I have friends that are bartenders, and Friday was their last day working at bars. I'm sure if bars were, nope, we are staying open, maybe some bartenders would be like, F it, I'm trying to make money, So yeah, I think most of the responsibility falls on the employer. Like, like La Liga had a shutdown. You didn't see individual teams going, all right, we're out of La Liga. All right, no. The whole league had to go out there, and then players have to follow. Obviously, those players make much more money, and I think they make money regardless of whether La Liga is going on or not. So that's a different story. You know, fighters get paid to fight; they don't get paid to sit around. So again, there's a lot to be said about. I mean, this whole thing brings up other topics as well, like fighters' pay and other things. But yeah. So where's the line drawn? I think this comes a responsibility to the promotion to cancel everything, right? Like same thing with Bellator. Bellator's a perfect example. Fighters were down to fight on Friday, but Bellator had to go in there and be like, look, you're getting paid, but you're not fighting. That's the way we're gonna run things. Props to Bellator. Terence Leverett, I'm going to ask you something outside of the Rona. What do you think Emmett versus Barbosa? Who do you favor, and who do you think PFL may have been a better choice for him at this point in his career? Much respect. Stay safe out there. Yeah, so Edson Barbosa, I believe he even asked to be released recently. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But he had plans to drop to 145. I had said that I had some skepticism, but after watching Aldo have a successful run at 35, I'm kind of be a little less skeptical and sort of just be like, all right, let's see what happens. Let me see how he looks at 145. I love that fight. I think it's a good fight. It's a good fight for Barbosa to introduce himself to the 145-pound division. I think it's a good fight for Emmett. Obviously Barbosa is a big name. It would be a nice little name in his record if he were to get a win. So it's a good fight for both. Yeah, I'm for it. All right, now I really do think this does it for Twitter questions. Oh no, we got one more. Danny, you should get a Colombian flag as your backdrop for your live episode. Also, what's the scheduled fight that never happened that you wanted to see the most? I mean, obviously, Khabib versus Ferguson. Who knows if that fight's going to go down even in the coming weeks? But yeah, that's the fight that that has been canceled the most, and that I'm mostly looking forward to. Yeah, it's a great fight. Outside of that, what fight has been canceled and never came back? I'm trying to think right now. The Nate Diaz Dustin Poirier was going to be a fun fight. I hope that gets rebooked down the line at some point. That was going to be a fun fight. What else? Yeah, no, I don't know what else. Oh, John Jones versus Rumble. That was going to be fun. That was booked. That didn't go down. That could have been interesting. At the time, was more interesting because Rumble was a nice win streak prior to the DC losses. But yeah, that would have been a fun fight to look at for sure. Danny Segura, watching your live stream, in your opinion, what's your top 3 best gyms currently? There's so many. It's hard. Also, gyms have become a little bit more spread out, and fighters are kind of taking a more nomadic approach and learning, this part of this place and this and that. So it's rough, but I'll just mention sort of the obvious ones. I mean, American Top Team is obviously a great gym in Coconut Creek. Hard Knocks 365, I believe, or 360. Yeah, 365. Obviously with Kamaru Usman, they do great stuff. There's so many. I mean, Henso's and everyone that drops in at Henso's. Fortis MMA. There's so many good gyms out there nowadays. Jackson Wink. You just go down the line. Yeah, there's tons of great gyms. All right, that does it for the Twitter questions. I'm going to take things to the live chat. I appreciate everyone that supported the Twitter part and gave in their questions. That way we get to jump into this live Q&A as fast as possible and also get to have a sort of title on this video because I know what I'll be talking about. So I appreciate everyone that participated on Twitter. Y'all are the best. And yeah, now it's time for the live chat stuff. Fun times. Segura, ¿cómo va Colombia, hermano? Yeah, Colombia is I think I mentioned it earlier. Yeah, Colombia shut down its borders. Like no one's allowed in the country unless you're a citizen or a permanent resident. And even then, you will be tested for coronavirus, and you will be put in a 14-day quarantine to make sure that you're good to go to operate in the country. There's a lot of old people in Colombia, so it's definitely concerning for old people. My grandpa lives in Bogota, where there's already been cases. He's 104. He turned 104 in February 20th, and he's someone that's very influential and very important in my life, and has been a huge supporter of what I do. That's someone I love very much, and I'm concerned about him. And he's staying home, obviously, and I hope the outbreak is not bad in Colombia, because he would certainly be at risk. But yeah, hoping for the best. Alonso Mena, I feel like we're in the twilight zone for real, man. This feels, I mean, it feels so surreal. You go to a supermarket here in Brooklyn, and everything's pretty much empty. The streets are fairly empty. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still people walking around and stuff, but there's definitely a lot of people staying at home. Especially because I feel like a lot of people in Brooklyn work in media. So yeah, a lot of people are working from home as well. It feels kind of surreal. And the second part of your question is actually Woodley versus Covington a possibility? I'm sure it is a possibility, but I don't think it's great. I don't think that fight goes down. But who knows? Gilbert Burns on a potential short notice fight with Woodley. Gilbert Burns on short notice fight is a recipe for success. I would say Burns fighting Woodley is more likely than Covington fighting Woodley. They're both ATT guys, though, right? Or no. Burns is not ATT. He's a Henry Hooft guy. Yeah, ATT versus Hard Knocks 360. 5, or I think that's her name. Yeah, that'd be fun. I think that's more likely. Who knows if he's even suspended? But obviously, he didn't take any damage against Demian Maia, and yeah, that's actually more likely. I feel like than a fight with Covington. Alonso Mena, man, tienes que seguir con las entrevistas en español, tal vez subirlas a tu canal. La de Joel quedó excelente. Thank you. Yeah, so Alonso Mena basically saying like he's really been enjoying my interviews in Spanish. So I've really only done 2. I did the interview with Joel in Spanish. That was fun. I uploaded it to my YouTube channel, and recently I uploaded an interview in Spanish with Santiago Poncinibio from Argentina. I saw him at UFC 248 in Las Vegas. I actually wrote a story about that on MMAJunkie.com, and then days later I released the video interview, which is on my YouTube channel. I'm gonna start putting close captioning on these videos. I saw a few people comment about it. So yeah, I know they're in Spanish. It's just captioning takes time, and it's something that I can do it. I just haven't done it. But I will put captioning on my interviews moving forward, on my Spanish interviews, so you guys who don't speak Spanish can understand what's going down and what's being said. But yeah, I mean, as far as continuing those, yeah, I mean, I plan on continuing on interviewing Hispanic fighters, and my preferred language of choice is Spanish. That's my first language, and to many fighters, that's the same case as well. And you can communicate a lot better in your native tongue. So I'll continue on doing that and building on that. And yeah, I'm glad that Alonso, you were enjoying my Spanish interviews. Muchas gracias. I mean, I've done so many of them, but like usually I just do them and I write a story about them, and then they're just an audio file on my computer, and eventually gets deleted. For these, I got to be in person with them, so I'm like, F it, I'll just record it and kind of see what happens. I'm still doing the interview anyways and writing an article for my site. So, why not have that little extra and give you guys a little bit of extra content? And yeah, so yeah, that'd be cool for sure. If I have the opportunity to do more like these, more of those interviews, I will do them for sure. But thank you for that comment, and I'm grateful that you're enjoying them. I'm just, again, it's nothing like super professional. I'm just there with my phone. It's a little shaky, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so that kind of bothers me, but figured that's better than nothing. So yeah. All right, any more questions? Throw them out in the live chat now. I see a lot of comments, but not questions. Going all the way down. Aaron Martínez, ¿Moreno merece la pelea por título o espera al ganador de la revancha de Figueiredo versus Joe? So Aaron Ramirez asking, Moreno deserves to fight for the title or should he wait for the winner of Figueiredo versus Joseph Benavidez? So I actually spoke to him and I couldn't get, so the connection in Brazil was pretty crappy. So we tried talking the day prior on Friday. We tried talking over the phone, over WhatsApp, and I couldn't hear him. He couldn't hear me. The connection was really poor. And so I'm like, all right, it's okay. I'll send you some questions and you just reply to me with voice messages. And, again, it's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is actually have a conversation, but I think that's the second best way to do it. And then you just send me voice messages with the answers, and then I'll turn that into an article. But the voice messages never sent out, and I got them literally an hour before the fight started because the connection was so crappy. And also he's dealing with, getting ready for a fight in just a few hours and all that. So I totally get it. So I wasn't able to get a story up on MMAJunkie.com, but I was still able to get information. So to tell you what he told me, basically leading up to the fight, just how the fight played out, that's how he thought it'd go. He said that Formiga was going to look to close the distance on him. He was going to keep him at bay with his striking. But if the fight were to the ground, he was confident on his grappling skills and scrambling skills to get back up. We exactly saw that. He kind of called it. What else did he say? He said that he hoped to make a statement in that fight, not only to get next shot, but to actually disrupt the order of Figueiredo fighting Joseph Benavidez and him actually jumping in that line and him being the next to fight for the title instead of waiting for the two. Did he achieve that? I mean, certainly on a good win streak right now. Certainly a win over Formiga is worth something. I believe actually Formiga defeated Figueiredo, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like not so recently. So, he has that on his favor. Let me see. Let me pull up his record. So yeah, Jussier Formiga beat Figueiredo in March 2019, so exactly a year ago. So he has kind of a case to kind of skip the line or skip one of those two. I don't know if he's pushing for him to fight Joseph Benavidez. He didn't specify that, or for him to be fighting Figueiredo. I don't know what exactly the case is, but either or he wants in. I don't know if that's the case exactly. I think if they're going to do a rematch, it's probably between those two guys and he gets next. I think he's done enough to get next. But I don't know. You tell me if you think he's done enough to sort of disrupt the order. Personally, I don't think so. Because it'd be weird because it's like Figueiredo won and he beat Joseph Benavidez. Yeah, there was a headbutt. He missed weight and there was some controversy there. But at the end of the day, he left with the W. So you would expect him to be back in that equation, right? And then Joseph Benavidez is the bigger name in the division. He's the guy that we all know. And he's the guy that's been saying he was wrong, right? The headbutt, the missed weight and all that. So, I mean, if the rematch, if there's going to be a fight for the title, I think it'd be a rematch between those two. And, I think Moreno's great and all that. But, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. And I'll say that to him as well. This is just me being transparent and honest and giving you my opinion on what I think on the matter. But certainly an impressive win over Formiga. He's killing it. And I think if anybody's next to fight for the title, it'd be him for sure. To answer your question. Also, this just kind of came to mind. You asked that question in Spanish, and a couple of people have thrown questions in Spanish. I'm curious to know how many people would actually be interested in me doing something similar to this in Spanish, because I can do it. I mean, that'd be kind of interesting, right? Obviously, I wouldn't stop doing the English stuff because I think most of my audience speaks mainly English, and I love doing these. But maybe in the future, there could be some Spanish content. I don't know. Maybe. Thank you for the question, though. All right, moving on. Yes, MMA. We should start asking some serious questions for Danny when he comes to the live chat. We're just memeing. Yeah. I've been scrolling down a lot, so I've been seeing that y'all have just been trolling on this live chat. I won't read most of it, but occasionally you guys have something funny to say, so I'll read that. But yeah, throw some real questions in there. Let's see. Do you see Kevin Lee as championship material still? Getting outstruck by raging out, and Oliveira seems big red flags to me. So yes and no. I am a little bit less on that boat than a lot of people. I know a lot of people are really high on Kevin Lee, and I think there might be something to be said about sort of the hype or something. Like when I see his game, yeah, he's skilled, but I see some holes, and I definitely see him. Like a lot of people have thrown out there the idea of Habib and Lee. That's the matchup. I think Habib would just outgrind Kevin Lee. And with his amazing cardio, I think they were just going to a wrestling match. I think Kevin Lee could hold his own for a little bit, but eventually I think Habib will just outlast him. And I think, there's, again, a lot of fighters that can pose a lot of problems to Kevin Lee. That's not to say, again, I just praised the guy like 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. I think he's very skilled, and he's only 27. He's just bound to get better. I think there's been a lot of pressure and a lot of high expectations set on him. Like just this question alone, you're addressing if he's championship material. Dude, the dude's still very young. Right now, again, as I said, the guy who beat him, Charles Oliveira, we're just talking about him as him being championship material. But again, he was a guy like Kevin Lee that just a couple years ago when he was 27, 26, we were wondering what happened to this guy. Like earlier, we thought he was going to be champion, and look where he's at now. Again, he's a young guy. Just give him some time. I think he's very good, and I think he could be champion. Just right now, no. He's just not there yet. But again, he's got a long road ahead. He's just 27. And look, Al's a great boxer, so there's no red flags as far as being struck by him. And Oliveira, I know he's known for his jiu-jitsu, but that dude has grown leaps and bounds on his striking. So no red flags about, losing in a striking battle against those two. Not at all. Yeah, not at all. So yeah, is Kevin Lee championship material? Time will tell. I am a little skeptical now after seeing that performance, but again, like I said, he's still very young. He's still very much a fighter in development, and by no means I am counting him out. He's still very skilled, and I do think that people might be hating on him a little too much because there's been some unfair expectations thrown at him very early into his career. Let's wait till he looks 2 years from now. Let him develop. He's clearly improving, which that's a good sign. Training at TriStar. Even in this loss, I saw improved version of Kevin Lee in certain areas. So just give the man some time. Give the man some time. Y'all asking me about Kevin Lee, but nobody's asking me about Charles Oliveira. Very little. I mean, I've seen very, very few comments. That's the guy. That's the guy. I'd love to see him fight a top guy next. I know he's calling out for the winner of Khabib versus Ferguson. I don't think that's very likely, but certainly I wouldn't mind, say, an Anthony Pettis rematch, as I mentioned, or Paul Felder. Again, that'd be a rematch as well, because Paul Felder elbowed the hell out of him not so long ago. I mean, there's definitely some good names for him, but certainly deserves somebody in the top 5 or just outside of it. The dude's really good, and he's becoming a serious issue at 155. I mean, his grappling is off the charts. He's tough as hell. Tall, rangy, great Muay Thai, can fight inside of the pocket, can fight out range. I mean, the guy is the complete package right now, and he's just getting better. Yeah, he's going to be he's not going to be. He is a problem at 155. Saint Trunks 1982 asks, Johnny Walker fight. Yeah, Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker. Yeah, he's been having some issues. Johnny Walker lost a decision to Nikita Krivlov in the main card of UFC Brasilia. Johnny Walker, not so long ago, was considered maybe a threat to John Jones and possibly the next title challenger. But we saw that Corey Anderson kind of derailed that at UFC 244. Then he comes back and has this performance against Krylov. Doesn't look good. Had some good shots here and there, but for the most part, he just got out-wrestled, out-grappled. Clearly, a very skilled guy and has an incredible talent in certain areas, but also has big deficit in others, including the grappling. If he meets someone that can wrestle, he's in big trouble. And then we saw him get knocked out at UFC 244, so he can get in trouble as well on the feet. Again, a very flashy guy, but certainly not up there as far as being a contender, a top contender just yet. Again, Walker's very young as well. Let me pull up his record. There's something to be said about today's society, and just again, it's not really a blame to the UFC, but just in general, how we want like young people to be successful right off the bat. Like, you're 23, you should be on top of the world. Like, nah, that's not how it works in real life. To some people, it works. We've seen obviously John Jones and a few other cases where people can be very successful at a young age, but for most people, it takes a little bit of trial and error. And yeah, like Kevin Lee, like myself, not that I'm comparing myself to those guys, but we're all born in 1992, 27. So the dude's still working things out. Recently switched to TriStar as well. Give him some time. Give him some time. But definitely a tough loss for him. But I would say this. He's not 32. He's not like in that kind of age where you go, ooh, road back to the title is going to be rough, or, certainly you're being exposed in these areas, and at this point you're pretty much a finished product. It's going to look rough in the next coming fights. No, it's definitely not anything like that. He's just 27, just switched camps. He's getting better. Give him some time. Very much like Kevin Lee's situation. Again, these losses are not great, and it proves that he's not ready just yet, but you don't know down the line. Again, physically he's a ridiculous athlete, and he's got knockout power, and he's not afraid to swing and take chances, and that definitely pays off in MMA. I mean, we've seen it in his early UFC performances. That's really why we're talking about him now, because you guys care, and he built that off taking chances early in his career. So a lot to work with here. Definitely someone that's still very promising, but just not there yet. Just not there yet, and we find that out more often than not in the UFC. Unlike boxing, where it's hard to tell whether guys are ready or not until they get to the very, very top. And the UFC is you sink or swim. And right now, they're not there yet. But again, both Kevin Lee and Johnny Walker are just 27 years old. They have they're in good positions as far as their age goes. They're ranked, and just give them time. That's what I would say. I'm not so doomsy gloomsy about those cats. Now, there's some guys out there that might be under the same circumstances, and they're in their 30s, and they've kind of been having the same style for some years. That's when you go, you can kind of have a verdict there and kind of make a final call and be like, yeah, championships, might not be a thing for them in the future. But for these two, they're so young that you never know. All right. Good somebody asked about Johnny Walker, because that was something I wanted to address. Thanks for the awesome content, Danny. Question: any chance these talks become a podcast? Yeah, again, I'll say this again. I've said it before in previous videos. This experience, as you know it, will improve over time. That is my goal. Again, little by little. As I said before, it takes time, it takes money, and it's definitely a slow process. But I want to do these. Continue to do them. I think I'm doing about twice a week. I think twice a week is a good number. I'm going to continue that rhythm. I don't want to do more unless I know I can do more, but I think this is a good rhythm. 2 videos a week, I can do that no problem. And I feel like I have enough content to talk about. I don't feel like I'm sort of pushing things and starting to make things up and doing weird things, unnaturally things. Also, about an hour just seems to be a good time for him. I know I'm passing it now, but there's so much to talk about. It's crazy. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, there is a very good chance all these could come to audio in the future. But as of now, no plans yet. But in the future, yes. So just hang tight. This whole experience will improve, whether it's quality wise or sort of bringing it to a new medium and having it on podcast form. Like, I listen to podcasts all the time. I understand. Having a YouTube video, sometimes you're not even paying attention to the video. You just want to get the audio. So I totally get it. But just give me some time. Again, me relaunching this YouTube channel is still very new. So much like the Kevin Lee, Johnny Walker situation, give me some time, fam. Give me some time, and I'll work things out as well. it's a work in progress. I'm not a finished product yet. So yeah, but I appreciate your support. I appreciate the nice compliment, and yeah, just stay tuned. Stuff will come. Let's see. Hey Danny, can I get a long distance high five? The only way to stay safe right now. There you go. My tocayo, Daniel Yerke. I could tell Joel liked your questions in Spanish. He smiled. Yeah. A likable guy. What can I say? No, I mean, yeah, I mean, you kind of gotta, read your. That's, I guess, it's part of like the art of interviewing, and also again, talking to him in Spanish, talking to the fighters that are Hispanic, talking to them in their native tongue definitely goes a long way. I mean, I've experienced that from what I see, what they put out in English versus what they put out in Spanish. It's completely different. Sometimes it's pretty close, but a lot of the times it's different enough to make a big difference as far as what the message actually is. And again, a lot of translators do an amazing job, but it's still difficult, and things will always get lost in translation, always. So the less people you have in between and the more direct contact you can get to the person, the better. And that goes even like past language. Like the best interview you can do to someone, and they will tell you this in journalism school, number one is person to person, face to face. Second, maybe video, Skype. Third, phone, right? Audio. And the farther you get from actual human interaction, direct human interaction, usually like not the worst the interview is going to get, but it's definitely going to change the message. Then email, right? Email me your questions and I'll write them. Same thing here with language. Talking through a translator, it's always going to be better to be face to face than talking through a translator. 100%. Even like the stuff that came out from UFC Brasilia, like I know Portuguese. Like I took Portuguese in college for a couple of years, trained jiu-jitsu. So I've always been around Brazilian people. Even dated a Brazilian girl for a little bit once. So I hold my own in Portuguese. Like eu falo português, eu posso falar com você. Fighter would say 10 things, only 8 or 7 would get translated. Again, it's a difficult job. My Portuguese is not perfect, but I hold my own. Mais ou menos. Anyways, I'll answer a few more and then I'll head out. I know I'm going past the hour mark, but there was so much to talk about here, and I feel like there's still a lot of questions that you guys are submitting and that I haven't answered. So I'll do my best to kind of make sure I'm not answering the same questions. If I were a fighter, what would be my ideal weight? Given my size, I think I would probably fight at 135 or 125. I don't know. Who knows? But I would not fight. MMA, no. Nope, I'm good. I don't want to get elbowed in the face. Okay, Demian Maia versus Donald Cerrone, a smart and possible fight. So let's talk about Demian Maia, all right? Demian Maia lost via TKO against Burns in the co-main event of UFC Brasilia. That was Maia. Maia was in a nice little run prior to that defeat. I believe his last loss before that might have been against, was it Leon? Wait. Well, no, Usman. I'm sorry. Yeah, Usman. So he loses to Kamaru Usman. That was at UFC Chile in May. I believe Usman took that on short notice, if I'm not mistaken. And then, or someone might have taken that on short notice. It might have been Usman versus, let me see, it might have been Usman versus Ponzinibbio or something like that. Certainly somebody took that fight on short notice from what I remember. Yeah, so it was Usman versus Ponzinibbio. And Demian Maia takes that on short notice, loses that unanimous decision. Then after that, beats Lyman Good. Rocco Martin, who those don't remember, Rocco Martin was coming up and was looking very good. Was certainly still is a promising figure in that division. Then beats Ben Askren, a fight that many didn't didn't really expect that it would go down the way it did, and that ended up being Askren's last fight in the UFC. And so a nice little 3-fight win streak there over some good names, and then now comes short to Burns. So tough. If he would have beaten Burns, maybe you can say there's maybe a little bit of chance he fights for the title again. Maybe, who knows? Depends on who gets matched up there. But it definitely would have been a nice streak to make a claim for it at the very least. But definitely puts a halt on things. Then Demian Maia speaking to reporters, mainly I believe Guilherme Cruz and Fernanda Prates. I believe everybody else was, at least from English outlets, everybody else was local from Brazilian outlets. He basically says that he's got one fight left on his deal, that he wants to retire after that, most likely. And he wants a nice little fight. So he wants either Donald Cerrone, because I believe they're tied up for most fights in UFC history, or most wins, or both, some crazy record like that. And he would like to sort of face another OG like that. Or another OG fight would be against Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez has been this jiu-jitsu killer type guy, and I say that with all respect, because I know he probably holds dearly jiu-jitsu and respects the art. So I'm not trying to make him sort of an enemy of jiu-jitsu world, but he certainly has a style that just is hell for any jiu-jitsu practitioner. And it's not defend and strike. It's, let me take the fight to the ground, to your game, and beat you there with my style. I mean, I've said this, as long as you match up Diego Sanchez against the jiu-jitsu, he's most likely going to come out on top. And that's why I don't understand some of the matchmaking, like against Michel Pereira and a few other guys he's got. Look, and I've said this, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I've said it a million times. I'm not against guys fighting past their prime. I'm not against old guys continuing fighting. I'm against old guys continuing fighting at a level that they're not supposed to. Diego Sanchez could all day get matched up against jiu-jitsu guys, take little damage, have exciting fights, because there will be exciting fights. Usually there's crazy scrambles, and give the opportunity for guys to, build a name off him, or, experience fighting him, whether that means win or lose. So let me pull up Diego Sanchez's record here just to sort of prove what I'm saying here. Prior to the Michel Pereira fight, he was winning fights, and it was all against jiu-jitsu guys, except the Michael Chiesa one. But Michael Chiesa guy he's really good. So I know he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he's a lot more than that as well. Again, Mickey Gall, a jiu-jitsu guy, and Craig White, a jiu-jitsu guy as well. So that Demian Maia fight would be interesting. It would be a nice little grappling fight. A lot of good exchanges. I would say Demian Maia would win just because it's Demian Maia. He's really good in jiu-jitsu, and he's a lot bigger than Diego, but I would still watch it, and I don't think that's a fight that people should be concerned about Diego taking damage. I mean, Demian Maia has been a guy that has said it. Like, I don't like punching people. Like, I try to win fights causing the least amount of damage to my opponents. So it's a fun fight for both. It's a fun, fan-friendly fight. It's a big fight, Sanchez versus Maia. Again, it's not like the biggest fight in the world, but it's certainly a fight you can put in a co-main event of a ESPN Plus card, or beef up a pay-per-view main card or something. Certainly that's a fight that I would be interested in. But sad to see, all good things come to an end. Demian Maia has given us a great amount of fights and finishes in the last 15 years. And but yeah, like you said, all things come to an end, and it seems he's coming towards the end of his career. One fight left on his deal, and I know a lot of fighters retire and come back, but Demian Maia has always been a gentleman, and not that retiring and coming back is not gentleman-like, but he's always kind of kept his word and been a man of his word and a man of principle. So I really do believe him. If he says he's done, he's done. He could go back into jiu-jitsu competition and super fights, like jiu-jitsu super fights. But as far as MMA, I really do believe his last fight will be his last, unless he changes his mind. But his last UFC contract fight will be the last of his career. That's what I meant to say. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Maia. But certainly I like more the Diego Sanchez fight than the Donald Cerrone one. One, because I feel like Donald Cerrone could have a chance of beating him, and again, this is me being biased. I'll admit it. Demian Maia is such a good guy. I would love to see him, walk out and leave the sport with a victory. Especially if they were to make that happen in Brazil, that'd be kind of a nice thing to see. But again, you can't guarantee that to someone. He still has to fight and perform. But yeah, any other things we should address from UFC Brasilia? I'm looking at the questions right now. If you could only have one snack for the next 2 months, what would it be? Amy Wee. I'm right now. I'm on M&Ms, peanut M&Ms. A few months ago, Snickers has always been big for me, but I don't know. Peanut M&Ms have been. I don't know. I've been into those a lot recently for whatever reason. That would be my snack for the next 2 months. I just can't get tired of them. I just can't. Dorothy's Hobby Farm. Dorothy's Hobby Farm. Please smash that thumbs up. Please do. Thank you. Appreciate it. Selfishly want to see Oliveira versus Dariush. I completely forgot about Dariush, and he just fought another guy who's been killing it. Dude, Dariush versus Oliveira, I'm all for it. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Good matchmaking there, Kendall. Let's see. What other questions? Wouldn't sub anyone. How do you not have a super chat? Super chat, for those wondering, I think it might be 10,000 subscribers. I'm at 2,000 right now. So, yeah, all I know is that my channel is not eligible. It's eligible for monetization, and I have that on, and a few other features, but it's not eligible for super chat. So, in case you're wondering why I don't do that, that's why. And honestly, like, this is fine. Like, I'm fine doing these just the way they are. Yeah. Let's see. If you were to breed two fighters to create the most perfect fighter there is, which two could you pick? Personally, Francis Ngannou and Paige Vincent. So let's say it was like human engineering, where, because I'm not trying to match make, I ain't trying to Tinder date and set up all these people, but if I could match up fighters as far as like, we get your genes and we create a baby in a lab. I would pick. I mean, it depends. It depends what kind of fighter, because there's so many like variations, right? And also what weight class as well. I do believe there are certain body types that are suited better for some weight classes than others. So it kind of all depends. I mean, if you want to choose the ultimate heavyweight, I would choose. I would choose Francis Ngannou and Gabi Garcia. I mean, that'd be the ultimate heavyweight. Gabi Garcia is like 230 pounds with like a six pack. She's like, just genetically, she's the. For those who don't know who Gabi Garcia is, and it kind of sucks that Gabi Garcia doesn't have there's not enough ladies of her size for her to fight, because she's actually like a very skilled fighter. So she has to fight a lot of like subpar people over in Japan. But Gabi Garcia is ridiculously good in jiu-jitsu, and her striking's coming along, and just athletically, she's just super strong, and cardio. I mean, she's got that jiu-jitsu cardio as well, and yeah, she's just ridiculous. She's very good. So yeah, that would be my choice. The child guaranteed would be just, I mean, they would just dominate the heavyweight division, whether it's a lady or a male, for years to come, for sure. What other questions? All right, I'm gonna do like one or two more and then head out. I'm almost an hour and 20 minutes here. What? Who should Trinaldo fight next? Trinaldo. Who did Trinaldo fight this weekend again? God, I can't believe that literally was just last night, and I'm forgetting. So Trinaldo defeated John McDessie. Yeah, I mean, Trinaldo's pretty much like the Joel Romero of the lightweight division. The dude's 41 years old. He's still beating up guys, and not only that, but he's doing it not only based on skill, but also like outpacing guys, out muscling them. Like physically, he's a lot better than the younger guys, which is ridiculous. And he's 41 years old. Wild. So he recently beat Bobby Green and John McDessie. He's on a 2-fight win streak. Prior to that, his last defeat was against Alexander Hernandez. So yeah, he's in a 2-fight win streak. He's looking good. Who knows? I mean, if he didn't get a title shot when he was on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-fight win streak, and that included wins over Ross Pearson in 2016, which that was a big win. Norman Park, Chad Laprise, Yancy Medeiros, and Paul Felder. I don't know what the hell the guy's got to do to sort of get up there, and sort of get a title shot. But as far as what's next for him, he's like a good, and I say this with all the respect in the world, he's like a good gatekeeper in the sense of, if you look at the people that have beaten him, Kevin Lee, Michael Chiesa, James Vick, Alex Hernandez, like all these guys eventually broke into the top 10. So if you want to find out if someone's a top 10 or not, you put him against Francisco Trinaldo, and he'll let you know, because he's good and he's got the skills and the physicality to test someone to see if they're ready for that top 10 competition. So again, still a very important asset for the UFC, specifically for all these Brazilian cards. And yeah, I don't know what's next for him, but certainly some big fights. I mean, he's beaten some solid names in McDessie and Bobby Green, so definitely in a good position. But who knows if a title shot is even a thing, especially like there's so many big names there's so many people that you can give title shots at lightweight. Like Trinaldo's definitely far from that, despite the nice little recent streak. But yeah. All right. Let me pull up the chat just to make sure I didn't leave any more questions out. Ooh, Danny, initial thoughts on Islam versus the Bronx. Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira. That would be amazing. Again, there's so many young guys in that division. The UFC lightweight division has a lot of everything you want, from old names, former champions, top contenders, rising prospects, rising contenders, everything. So yeah, it's great. All right. I believe that does it. So I'm going to call it quits here. We are an hour and 20 minutes in. So I believe this is historically the longest live Q&A I've done on my YouTube channel. So this falls in the history books. I appreciate everyone that tuned in. A couple of announcements. I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something and I forgot. Oh, yeah, just got a couple stories in the works. I literally spoke to Enrique Barzola, who fought to a draw against Hani Yaya literally last night. It's literally like an hour after his fight. I'm like, you sure you want to do this now? Like, we can do this tomorrow. But, and sort of that experience. And, yeah, he kind of went in great detail about that. So maybe I can put something together about kind of that perspective. And that's it. Then I believe an AJ McKee interview coming out probably this week, and that's about it. And then just stay tuned for, again, more live chats like this. And yeah, subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, turn on notifications so you know when I go live. And lastly, but certainly not the least important, please stay safe out there. Please take this whole coronavirus thing seriously. Wash your hands, don't touch your face. Try to remain indoors as much as you can. I'm not saying go in complete shutdown and sort of deprive yourself from life. But certainly keep in mind, especially if you're watching this, this is not going to affect us deeply. I mean, worst comes to worst, we get sick for a little bit and we're out for 2 weeks, just like it'd be like a big cold, basically. But that is not the case for others. So let's keep that in mind, and be good members of our community. And that means avoiding public spaces, avoiding large gatherings. And I'm sure you'll occasionally have to leave your house to buy groceries here and there, maybe see a couple friends, but certainly limit all of that as much as you can, and keep hygiene in mind and all that. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say. So stay safe out there. Look, I even shaved, got rid of my beard. So, doing all things I can to sort of contribute here. So anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And that is that. See you hopefully soon next week.